Hi, everybody. I'm Amy.
And I'm Audria.
And I'm Nicole.
So this is the right crowd. Grab a cup of coffee.
Or a cup of tea.
Or double fist it.
And let's get started. So guys, if you'll see that we have a guest.
Yes.
Yay!
I'm here.
This is Nicole, and she is the brain and the brilliance behind Stop Writing Alone, which we talk about in just about every episode that we do.
We do.
So we thought we'd bring her on and let her talk about herself instead of us just talking about her. So, Nicole. Hi. Where'd you get the idea? Let's start with who you are, where you're at, and how you got the idea for Stop Writing Alone.
Ooh, all the things. Okay,
all the things.
I am Nicole Rivera, and I am calling in from Staten Island, New York, over here up in the East Coast. And where did I get the idea for Stop Writing Alone? I'm a former teacher, so I'm very used to working in community, and that was always really important to me in my classroom, that my students work together. I got very sick after 10 years of that and was literally home alone, recovering, but also tapping into my first love of reading and writing, getting back to story. And I started blogging and finding community through blogging, finding writers on Twitter, finding all different spaces where I didn't have to feel like I was doing all of my writing alone. And when 2016 came around, I stumbled upon on Twitter, as one does, a lot of writers were talking about this thing called pitch wars. Like, it was a hashtag that just started showing up. And I had a similar experience in 2011 where this weird hashtag NaNoWriMo came up in Twitter. And I was like, what are these letters all jumbled together? And that's how I discovered National Novel Writing Month, which was like my first online explosion of writing and community. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I was truly inspired. And it was the first time I wrote a novel beginning to end. So then you fast forward to 2016. Now I've written at least 2 complete novel drafts. I see this hashtag pitch wars and do the same exploration and find out about this contest where you can submit your novel and query to become a mentee and get a mentor to walk you through your book, your novel, beginning to end, get the whole story. And I win a spot. And my novel transforms, my writing transforms, everything about how I'm showing up to the page transforms. And I think I want every other writer to experience this. I want every other writer to get to a point where they're not doing it alone anymore, because that experience really elevated my writing. So that was what planted the seed. I didn't know what it was going to be. I didn't know if I was going to do, my original thought about it was that it would be like a subscription box. Mm-hmm. And I would do maybe themed boxes with like you guys are doing here in the Right Crowd. My original idea for Stop Writing Alone was a subscription box where there was going to be a theme surrounding a craft book each month.
Oh, yeah.
And that I would build a community, a forum where writers would come together and we would talk about the book of the month in the box, and then, have other writerly things in there. And I started exploring that maybe like 2017, looking how to do craft boxes. And it was in 2018 that I found Kathy Heller and her Everyone Can Podcast course. And I had started listening to her podcast, fell in love with it. And she's, don't keep your day job. So she's all about like, how can your dreams become your living, in all ways. Right. And I was really intrigued by that and went to our 5-day thing, her 5-day challenge. And by the end of the 5 days, I said to my husband, I think that Stop Writing Alone thing can be a podcast. Like, I think I had it all plotted out. Like, those ideas that I had for the monthly boxes were now turning into episodes. And okay, I could talk about morning pages. I could talk about pitch wars. I could interview this person that I met and that person that I met. And that was really it. I started recording, and it's become all the things. It turned into that community that I've dreamed and wanted. We've had discussions about those craft books within community. And I am truly not writing alone, but my greatest joy is that others are now not writing alone because of me showing up for this crazy idea. So that was a really long answer.
You took us on a journey.
And it was fabulous.
I don't know how to answer that short. I'm sorry.
But it was such a great story about where you started. And I did not even know about, I mean, you had mentioned Pitch Wars before on one of the Happy Campers, but I did not know that that was really like the impetus about how it transformed your writing. And that just is so exciting to even hear that.
It would, I had been at that point where I was doing nano, I was showing up to my writing. I felt really creative. I was blogging and everything. But you get to that point where it's like, can I not be better? Can I not get my writing to bookshelf level? And I couldn't figure out what it was. I couldn't get revision for the life of me. I'm like, what is it? Those periods are right. The commas are right. The spell check. I did it. What else is there? And that's really my greatest argument. And I think the one that most people get about not writing alone is that we can only see so much, right, in our own writing. And it was that work that I did with my mentor was Austin Aslin, who's a great, he's a YA writer. He's doing a whole middle grade series now with Jacques Cousteau's son, which is like crazy to me because my mom was like the greatest Jacques Cousteau fan.
Yeah.
But Austin, he just looked at my stuff and it was like the first chapters and came back with questions and, like ideas and thoughts that I had never thought of. But as soon as he asked the question, I'm like, yes, that's the thing that I need to add to transform this. And the facts are the facts. I could not even find that question on my own. So I needed to stop writing alone, and I needed everybody that felt stumbled at some point to just stop writing alone. And it doesn't have to be, as was my experience, a published author, somebody with experience. It's literally another set of eyes. If somebody's a reader, they can do exactly that for you. They'll read your stuff and say, I'm just like, from this point to this point, I wish you would tell me what's going on here. And you're like, I didn't say it. How did I not put that on the page? You're right. Let me go do that. And everything gets so much better. So yeah, it was NaNoWriMo is, I think everybody gets like that excitement, enthusiasm, motivation. And it's like, yeah, I don't want to do this alone. This is so great. This energy is great. But there's a point where then it has to become a proactive look at the work. And that's something different. And that's really like the PowerPoint of not writing alone. And I don't know how I would have learned that without Pitch Wars.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a big deal for me. That's why I'm always like, if you can do it, just try it.
Well, I'm super excited about, I mean, I've thought about Pitch Wars, and maybe with the next book, I will look at that, but just, I know what you mean about having somebody ask you a question. Like, it's mind blowing how just one little question, I've had people, I have friends that I talk over my book with,
Right.
like we go on hikes and they're like, do you want to hike or do you want to talk about your book? Like,
Can't we do both?
like, I promise I'll only ask a few questions. But there are only a few people who go hiking with me anymore.
Oh my goodness. What are your motivations, Audrey?
But being able to have a soundboard and have them ask you questions, or you ask them questions, like I was stuck with a motivation for a character for a very long time because it made perfect sense to me. And
Right.
so I said, so she does this and this, and they were like, well, why wouldn't she just call the cops? I'm like, who calls the cops?
In a story like this, we don't pick up that phone.
Yeah, just having, I had to answer that question on the page though.
Yes,
Why?
exactly.
Because most people are going, wait, what?
Right.
So yeah, just having and I found when I joined your group and have joined various sessions of your group, that talking about it, first of all, writers understand, so they will listen and they'll
Yes.
ask, questions that make sense, and they're writers or readers too.
Right.
So having that community to chat with and to express frustration with, and in one thing that I really appreciate from your group or from, other writers and community is they understand when you're not writing, like why it's
Yes.
not on a bookshelf yet. They understand how tough it is and
Exactly. Yeah.
how exhausting it is to get to the page, but how it's still important to get to the page. And so that's great that you bring that to people.
Yeah, it's been a joy for me. I mean, my joke with everyone is that I've done it so that I have it. It's just like, I need this thing to exist, and you guys want to like come along. Excellent. Thank you again.
Yeah, I get that. There's I don't know what there's that saying. It's write the book you want to read and start the community you want to belong to.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I was saying to Amy, I've told both of you, I'm so excited about the Write Crowd, because to me, that's the true dream of Stop Writing Alone realized, right? It's not just people gathering around me and having the conversation about my stuff, but it's like, do this for yourself, like keep the conversation going and continue to create these communities, because it's like all these separate conversations and voices are what everybody needs. Like, we don't know who are going to be the writers that needed your voice right now, above all in going through all of the craft books. So exciting. I'm so geeking out on what you guys are doing. It's ridiculous.
Well, thank you. So are we. So what's been along this journey that you've taken? What's like one of the most memorable or the coolest things that you or authors you've spoken to?
I mean, in terms of writing or community, I mean, there's so many different things. I would say like there are these cool sort of serendipitous things. And one was the timing of it all when it came to me designing the Happy Campers Club. I started Stop Writing Alone with an idea that I wanted to have meetings with people and do kinds of fun events and have all these conversations live, but I wasn't really sure how to do that in the beginning. So I had like some write-ins that I did in the Facebook group. I did some writing prompt parties, but I really wanted like an event, that coincided with the whole NaNoWriMo. Like NaNoWriMo had that energy, it had all of that wonderful stuff, but it was always like this flat forum, and I never felt like I was connecting deeply with the people. So I said, when Camp NaNoWriMo, which happens in the spring, it's spring and summer, but when it was coming up in April, I said in 2020, I was like, I'm going to try to latch on to that. April actually is a huge month for writing in general. This Camp NaNoWriMo, it's National Poetry Month. There's a blogging challenge that I used to do. So I'm like, that's a great month to get writers together. Everybody's got the energy, but where's the connection? So at the beginning of 2020, I started to talk about it, plan it, and even pitch it. And a couple of people signed up really early on. And I was like, okay, I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to go for it. And we'll see, just 1 month. And then the lockdown hit.
Oh.
And I almost canceled it because I said, life is crazy right now. Maybe now's not the right time. Maybe I should come back in July or wait for November. But like 2 people had signed up. And I was like, they're not asking me to cancel it, so I'll show up for them. And like, what else am I going to do? Like, I talked it over with my husband. I'm like, I'm supposed to be doing this thing, and you guys were supposed to be at school and work and everything, but what do you think? It's okay if I'm doing this and you guys are doing that? And he's like, yeah, why not? What else are we going to do? We're on lockdown.
Yeah, exactly.
And but like, none of us knew what the heck that meant. What the heck is lockdown, right? It
or
ended
how
up
long it would last.
and that was like, for sure. That was the other thing. Cause I think that was one of the things that my husband said, that, well, you're doing it in April, right? So maybe it'll be over by then. Maybe it'll, because we went into lockdown on like March 19th was his last day of the classroom. He's like, I think some people are saying like 2 weeks. So maybe it'll only be a couple of days. I'm like, that's true. All right, let me write it out. It's a total experiment. I have no idea what's going on. And not only was it just a great thing to do, it was quite possibly the most perfect thing to have available in lockdown, because for those of us that were there, even from the beginning, and I think all the way through, it was so wonderful to have other faces to look at and speak to than the humans that we were trapped with. And so that is really one of the big highlights for me, that that just felt like some sort of divine intervention, that all the chips fell in on that. But I mean, from a writing perspectives, there's been so many incredible stories from writers of people that haven't written for forever. Some people that have showed up to writing for I think I want to take this seriously. Like Jennifer's a great example. Jennifer Holdridge, who's been with the Happy Campers from the beginning. She's like, I kind of always been thinking about stories. I'd love to try it. Can you guys help me with that? And we're like, sure, come along the ride. Well, like this past month, she had her first story published.
Yes. Yep.
And that, to me, to sit back and see that beginning to end, amazing. And she did the work. I mean, she showed up and did the work. Jackie Dean is another example. She had published many years ago. She spent like 10 years putting that book together. When we met, she was in that perfectionism mode of like, I want to get book 2 out. It's not right. And you could just see like the walls around her, bound by this perfectionism. And she's now got one book on Kindle Vella. She's starting another book serialized on her Substack. She's becoming like a voice in the expertise of Substack and what that is. Her blog post that she does for work is getting turned into a podcast now. So it's all of these different things. I mean, and that's not to speak of what the two of you are doing right in front of me. I mean, the same types of, I could speak to like every single person in the Happy Campers has their own beginning, middle, and end. And it's really, for me, as I said at the beginning, I started my whole adulting as a high school teacher. Yeah. That's my soul. That's where I'm at. And my greatest joy is to watch, I've always thought kids grow, into their full people, but just to watch people reach their potential and beyond. That's everything for me. And like I always say, I keep showing up to community and I'm like, okay, I got to get back to my writing. I got to get back to my stuff and get my books out there. But I'm so fulfilled by what I'm seeing happening with all the, Susie Taylor's another one. I mean, fascinating. A woman who was a journalist, but then couldn't own the title of being a writer. She didn't think she was a writer. She actually didn't even join Happy Campers in the beginning because she felt like, I'm not really a writer. She did her first fiction writing with us in a writing prompt party. She's now plotting and planning a cozy mystery series. I mean, it's just wonderful. Don't get me started on talking about my people, okay? Because then that'll never end.
Awesome. So you've had a lot of people go through Stop Writing Alone. And
I think we're at, because I have a list now of Happy Campers forever. Like once you're a happy camper, you're a happy camper forever. And I think we're at 20. I think there's been 20 people. And then I don't let the camp get bigger than 15. So it's been, it's not always the same people all the time. But it's been a great Yeah, I'm a pebbles in the water kind of person. Let the ripples go, and I'm just watching it happen. It's really great.
That's awesome. So speaking of the people that have gone through, you have a number of ways for people to find out what's going on with Stop Writing Alone and to participate. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe how other people can start to build these little pieces of community around their writing?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm really just always trying to find people where they are. And it started with the podcast. But I'm also, I have a YouTube channel where I share writing prompts every single week or writing exercises. That's the MV Rivera YouTube channel. Why I didn't get Stop Writing Alone, I don't know. But that's for people that just are looking for motivation to write. They need the ideas. They want to be sparked by something different. And I'm all over Facebook with Facebook groups, and because that's really one of the first spaces that I started connecting with writers was in all of those fabulous Facebook groups, communities, pages. So we're there on Stop Writing Alone. The group is called Stop Writing Alone with Nicole Rivera. And I love groups over pages because that's where people can put up their own posts. It's not always just the person who owns the group.
Yeah.
The page is great for like getting all the information. Like, here's the new YouTube, here's the new podcast. That's great. And you can comment on it. But in the group, you can actually share your own posts, questions about where you are in your writing, sharing, some tips or tricks that you found. Also, I have a mailing list of, that's how people can get the Zoom links for different things that are going on. And the stuff that I have going on monthly that's sort of open to everybody is every month, I think it's the third Tuesday of the month, I have a write-in. And it's on Zoom, and we can do sprints. Usually we do like 15 minutes of writing and 5 minutes of chat in between 3 times. And on the 4th Friday of every month, I do the writing prompt party, which is recorded and goes on the YouTube channel, but everybody's invited to that. And the writing prompt party has been like really, really helpful to so many writers because it helps you get over that imposter syndrome. It helps really build a sense of community. I think one of the things that's really important about building community is yourself being a bit vulnerable so people can get to know you. And that's scary. And some groups and communities that turns into, here's my sob story. Here's what happened to me. Here's my pain points. And not everybody wants to share all their business with perfect strangers just to see if they can make a connection, right?
Right.
So writing prompt parties are like my sneaky way of tapping into people's vulnerabilities without them exposing themselves. Because as creatives, we all know, anytime we create anything, we are sharing a piece of our soul. Like that's a vulnerable moment. So the writing prompt parties are kind of I want to say there's like no real skin in the game because it's not your idea you're writing about.
Mm-hmm.
I give you a prompt and I say 15 minutes, right? And when the time's up, I say, go ahead, read what you wrote. And people are like, what? This is garbage. This is a 0 draft. There's so many mistakes. Vulnerability all over the place. And the thing is, yes, I want you to read, but I'm going to read. And so is everybody else here. We're all in the same boat and we all know how raw it is. And to your point earlier, Audrey, you said there's something special about writers getting it. Well, in that room, we're all writers. We all get that this is a hot mess. And the very interesting thing is because we're reading, where we are listening to people's stories rather than reading stories, we are getting an essence of their storytelling without being distracted by all of the grammatical stuff, the spelling errors, maybe the sentence structure, because the person is delivering it in the way that they intend it. So as an author, when I read my story, I get instant feedback from the group about my storytelling. That was an amazing idea. I love how you twisted that. That dialogue really hit. you know? Meanwhile, if somebody looked at how I wrote it, they would be like, this is nonsense. This is garbage. But I come away from the writing prompt party, one, feeling like this great release of like, I was so vulnerable and so were they. We are connected. And then also, maybe I got something. Maybe I have stories in me that are worth telling. And maybe it's worth it for me to work on getting the page to look exactly like I sounded. Mm-hmm. So I always, even in my Staten Island writers group, if I have somebody that's coming new, I'll always say, come to the prompt meeting first. That's a perfect first meeting. You'll get to know writing styles. You get to know a little bit of personalities. Your writing, your precious project isn't on the fire. It's just some throwaway thing. Mm-hmm. And it's just a really great way to meet writers, I think, and connect, because like I said, I do think all of our relationships, whether they're friendships, familial, or romantic, they always get to the next level when we get a tiny bit vulnerable. Yeah. And true. So since I'm trying to create community, I'm always looking for places to get people to be there in a risk-free way. Don't open a vein. Don't tell us the whole, we get there. Lord knows we get there in the Happy Campers Club. Especially in lockdown, God help us. We were all feeling all the feels. Yeah. But we had to have a certain amount of security before we could get there. And so those are some of the things. So I would say, just like I say to my Staten Island writers, if you are new to Stop Writing Alone, a great entry point is writing prompt party. Great.
And that is super sneaky of you. I never even thought about it that way. I always like, oh God, I have to share. Oh my goodness. So sneaky, so smart.
Yeah. Well, that's teaching. That's the teaching training. Because, that, again, always trying to build community in the classroom too. So.
Yeah. Well played, Nicole. Well played.
Thank you.
Amy, I've been doing all the talking. I'm sorry. Don't let me let you jump in.
No, you're doing great.
Audrey's like, help me, Amy. Amy's like, you're good. I'm comfortable over here.
The one thing I'll add, the thing that I love about the writing prompt party is we all get the same prompt.
Oh yeah.
Never have the same story. Ever. Yeah, and I don't care how simple the prompt is, we will all take it in a completely guy in line. Okay, there's 10 different lines of 10 different places. Like,
yes,
it's great. It's cool to hear where everybody takes their story.
This is really my obsession with writing prompts. Okay, because one of the other things that happens with new writers is I can't share, they're going to steal my idea. If I talk about my story, it's gone. Somebody's going to take it. And I get that fear, especially, again, we all have our precious projects, but you do one writing prompt party where the idea is exactly what we share. We all have exactly the same idea, guy in line, right, for 15 minutes. And you realize that the idea is nothing. It's not your precious thing. Your precious thing, the thing that you bring to the table, is your interpretation of it, your writing, everything else. Have my idea. I can't wait to see what you do with it, because I got this whole other thing that I'm doing. I know you're not doing it because you're not in this crazy brain of mine, because it's be madness. So I'm going to do what I'm going to do with it. And I'm curious to see what you do about it. When I was blogging, that's when I first learned that lesson, because just to get content, it's like, what the heck am I going to write about? I was trying to write every single day. Okay. So I was looking for stuff all the time, and I was finding different groups. And there was this one, I want to say it was the red dress writing, something like that.
Red shoe writing club.
Right. And that's, so I always look for my people they've closed the blog. I mean, we're talking about 11 years ago,
Oh.
long time. So they're not there anymore, but I've heard about Red Shoe. But the Red Dress Writing Group, I'm pretty sure it was Red Dress Writing Group, used to do 2 prompts every single week. Monday was a memoir, and then Friday was fiction. And so what you would do is you would use the prompt, you would write it on your blog, and you would share the link, and then you would read everybody else's, and loads of people would be participating. The Linky would have like hundreds of blogs, and you would go through. And that's when I first, I remember the first time I clicked somebody else's, and I was like, how did you get there from that prompt? And then you'd go to the next one and you'd be like, there was another thing you could have done. Like, my brain could not even conceive of that there was any other way to think of this thing than the way I did it. I'm like, we're all going to be writing the same story about this guy on this line. What a stupid prompt. And then you go through and you're like, no, my goodness, this is brilliant. There's so many ways you can do this. So that was probably, a first seed of the power of community, because that helped me feel more confident about sharing my ideas, sharing my thoughts, and not walking around this world fearful. I mean, imagine this. We've got all these writers that are terrified of sharing their story because they're afraid somebody's going to steal it. The whole point of story is that you share it so somebody can read it, right? So that is like a massive block, and prompts and community are a really great way to knock down that wall, because we've got all our walls. So yeah, Amy, that is my jam. Seeing all the different stories.
And my stories that I've written in those prompts has turned into my short story anthology that's almost has all of the stories in it.
Right.
So some people are like, oh, they're throwaway stories. Like, I'm never going to do anything with them. And I know I've heard Jackie say that a couple of hers has turned into ideas for full-length novels.
Absolutely. And she's not alone. There's a number of people that come back to that idea, because this is what happens. Where does your inspiration come from? Everywhere. Right. So you write this thing in this short story in this 15 minutes, and you think nothing of it. But 2 weeks later, you're still thinking about that world, or you're still thinking about that character. That voice won't leave you alone. That's it. You're hooked. That's your thing. So yeah, Jackie's got a full length. I think Heather even got something out of that. Oh, and Jennifer's story that got published was a writing prompt party story. And Jamie also had a story that was published from a writing prompt party. So without question, we go into it. I try to tell everybody, like, don't go in so attached, because we're here to have fun. That's why I called it a party. The Staten Island Writers Group, we have prompt meetings, but when I did Happy Campers, I'm like, we're having a party here. We're doing writing prompt party. This is going to be fun. It's part of my trickiness, Audria. Part of my trickiness. You're going to have fun.
So much rather go to a party than a meeting.
Yeah. And I'm secretly making you vulnerable in this party. Like, that's the whole thing. But it's been wonderful to see. People will say, oh, here's my story. It got published. It's out here. And I'll start reading it. I'm like, why does this sound so familiar? Oh, that's the, when we did Story Cubes. I'm like, get the heck out of here. You turn that into this. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I have stories for, it's unbelievable. And I go back through my notebooks of the writing prompt parties. And because it's 15 minutes and it's over, you forget about them too sometimes. And I'm reading through the notebooks. I'm like, I can't believe I wrote that. Like, that's amazing. Look at that. That's another thing. How did this just die in a notebook somewhere? So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Good stuff.
So do you have another, I know you just started, well, at the recording of this.
Yes.
You just started the next camp. Do you have in mind, will your next one after this be spring?
So I'm thinking there's 2 things that are going to be happening in 2022. One is that for the Happy Campers major event, which is this schedule behind me where every day, Monday through Friday, has at least one live meeting. They're going to be hitched to the nanos. So, and just the spring and the fall. So I'm going to do March, April,
Okay.
2 months. And then like we're doing now, October, November, because I really like this model where we take the month before for our prep. And then we use the second month for, our real work. And for me, the thing that's been always working for me with NaNoWriMo is that I use November for drafting something. And then I use April for the revising of that thing. So the spring session is the one where I'm going to lean heavy on the critique groups and things like that. And right now in the fall session, we're doing a lot of brainstorming and talking about story development, structure, and planning. But the other plan for 2022 is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, but like as a solopreneur or whatever we call this, when you're doing this all on your own, it's like, how do I make all the things happen when I'm still just one person? And that's to try to have like a year-long like subscription where it's not intensely every single day, but having these kinds of meetings like once a month, like every month having a goal meeting, and every month then having our writing sprints, our writing day, and then our casual chat and critique circles and craft chat, and then writing prompt parties, of course, and just doing that on a monthly basis rather than every single week. So that's going to be coming out in 2022. I'm basically just going through all the tech right now to figure out where's the space to sort of host that, because one of the things that I love with the Happy Campers is not that I want to work for Zuckerberg anymore. And that's really my resistance with the subscription model. I don't want it to be hitched to Facebook. But with our Happy Campers, every single Happy Camper season has had its own private Facebook group so that there's a place for the community to sort of gather and share things all throughout. I mean, aside from the fact that the Zoom link is theirs for the time, that you're in, you can go into Zoom and have a chat or do a write-in whenever we're not having a meeting. So that's the kind of stuff that I want to do in 2022. I want to have a Zoom link open for the month for everybody, and then have, the times that I show up live, but then also have a space for a community to gather. And then those people that are in the subscription will just automatically be in the intensives that are going to be in the spring and the fall. So that is my hope. That is what I'm planning. So right now, definitely without question, spring, there will be Happy Campers Club for March and April. Even if there's a lockdown, I won't let it stop me.
You go, Nicole.
But then the subscription model, I'm hoping is the beginning of the year, but I'm still working out all the kinks. So
boy.
Yeah.
That does sound exciting.
That would be great. I mean, for many of us that started like the Happy Campers OG, we have found ways to connect with each other throughout so that it doesn't necessarily feel like we're without each other, on the in-between. But there are some members that just haven't gotten to the loop of that in-between conversation. And I see the bumps and the waves and motivation when camp is over. They're floundering, looking. There's loads of community, but when you find your people, you find your people. So how can I help sustain that while still surviving? Like I can't be on 365 days of the year. So that's been my big struggle. I'm like, there's a way. I know there's a way. So that's the big plan.
Very cool. Well, go ahead, Amy.
No, I was just going to say, did anyone have anything else to add before we wrap up? So what did you have, Audria?
She had something.
I was just going to say, is there anything else you want to tell people before we wrap up?
All right, ladies, you're on the same page. I love that. No, I just keep writing. Don't give up. And don't give up on finding community either. I've been interviewing the happy campers for my book and also for the podcast. And so many of the people that have come to Stop Writing Alone Happy Campers have had varying success with writing community. And what I thank them for is that they didn't give up. They didn't give up on themselves or their writing or finding their right people. I may not be the right person for everybody, and I'm okay with that. Like that makes sense to me. So if you find a community that works for you, go for it. If you find one that doesn't really jive, don't feel guilty about moving on and finding what works for you. I think there's even, times in our lives where this is the right person for me right now. And then maybe I need to level up or go somewhere else. That's cool. Like that is all part of the process. And I think just giving yourself permission to do that is part of the process as well.
That's true. And I was just thinking, as you were saying that, it's like sometimes you have to tell a community or a group, it's not you, it's me.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
great.
You don't want to tell them I got to level up because that's just rude.
No, I don't think that's rude. I see. And that's the thing. I discussed earlier about how I came to podcasting with Kathy Heller. And one of the great struggles that I had was that point where she was still teaching the same thing, which was fine because there was still millions of people that needed to hear it. And I remember turning to my group, my people, my Voxer Vixens, my Stop Dreaming Alone group, ladies that I met in Kathy Heller, and we were all struggling. We're like, why won't she teach us the next thing? And then I was like, it's like she teaches the alphabet, the ABCs, and we're ready to read. Why won't she teach us how to read? And then, and when I did that metaphor, it clicked. I'm like, she's the kindergarten teacher. We got to find a new teacher. We got to go.
Wow. Yeah.
So I don't think and it's no offense to her. She does what she does very well.
She does it fabulously.
Amazing. Yeah. But there is a point where now it's like, well, now I'm ready to take the action because she's really good at filling you up to say, well, I can live the dream. I can do this. But then you're like, how exactly do I do it? Not just motivating, but like, what button do I click next? So that's where you go and explore and find. And that's a difficult thing. That is a difficult thing. It's not easy to find the next person. So don't give up. Don't give up on any aspect of your creativity.
And I think you also have to keep in mind, like you said, Kathy is like the kindergarten teacher. She has to stay the kindergarten teacher because there's always new people coming in that are like ground level or like really just have an idea and they don't know what's going on. So she can't necessarily move with you, right? Because then who's going to teach
the others
people the basics and the foundations?
Exactly. So, you have to release the person to be able to do that, and I say that to people in Stop Writing Alone. Like at any point, if you feel like you need to go to another community, if another community is now serving your needs, I get it. I will always be here. I am just like the kindergarten teacher, right? I will always be here. My door is always open, no matter what you need. I'm here. But my skill set is only, so much in so many directions. And, specifically, like even just talking to all you guys that write mystery specific, like I love me some mystery, but the specifics of structure for that genre, anybody in a specific genre like that, even romance, it's like, okay, we got to find you the teachers that know how to speak to you about that specifically, because I'm just not the right person to get you through that level of it. I'll be here for whatever other questions you have. You want to talk about story, you want to talk it through, but I'm totally okay with you going and find, and even saying like, I can't show up for happy campers and right now because I'm investing in this. Of course you are. Go ahead. Like give me a call when you get to the next level. I want to tell everybody, that's that's part of the process. And I do hope that community leaders out there get that when people move on from them is not a personal offense.
Not
This is
personal.
just natural growth. That's what you want. So
All right. Well, we will have all of Nicole's links in our show notes. Make sure you do that. The podcast, the YouTube channel, the website. Am I missing anything?
She has an Instagram too.
Instagram. I'm on at Stop Writing Alone. Yes, that, and today is the day we're recording is Friday, and that's when I do the photo prompt on Instagram.
Cool.
It's a fun little day on Instagram for me.
All right. So this is where we say our goodbyes.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
And then we'll hit the stop recording. That was a great talk.